All right, family. We black once again. It's on with the general. Y'all know what time it is. We got a powerful presentation today. Legends of Kemet's 18th Dynasty, Pharaoh Amenhotep III, and Empress Queen Tiye in the house. We're gonna be discussing some heavyweight rulers of ancient Egypt, arguably the heaviest. But we before we get started, family, I want to make sure that you get over to the General's Patreon page. That's right, over 500 exclusive live streams that you cannot view nowhere else on the planet. I want you to get over there, family, and get access to some dynamic, mind-blowing material. The link is right there at the top of the chat. Also, kingseti.com, online marketplace. Get you some fly t-shirts, hoodies, African Kemetic jewelry. We got classic DVDs that you cannot view or see anywhere else. We talking about that classic material. Get over there, family, kingseti.com. And to all the family out there, make sure you get a video a thumbs up, like it because you love it. Share it with your family and friends. Comment. Just don't say nothing stupid because you will. You'll get banned, family. And you don't want that. Okay, today we're going to be talking about two heavyweights. Arguably, you understand, arguably the heaviest of all time. You see, especially as a duo. You see Pharaoh and Empress. And, and the general was the first one that, mentioned that these were not just queens, the 18th dynasty. This was the empire. This was the age of empire. So these was empresses. Okay. But a lot of people don't want to, they don't want to, say this. Because there's no emperor nowhere else on the planet at that time that could there is no empire. Egypt had the first empire. You see, had the first empire, so there was no male emperors nowhere else on the planet at the time that these sisters was empresses. And so, nobody want to specify that, but the general most definitely specified. Now, we talking about Amenhotep the third. We talking about Queen Tiye, and we talking about, they grabbed the reins of power after, many, brutal battles, for, supremacy in the world. We talking about the early Tutmosis. We talking about Amos, the founder of the 18th dynasty, who freed Egypt of the assault by the Hyksos. You see, they had come in on Kemetic land and taken control of Kemetic land. And so our family, waged a war of liberation. You see, a war of liberation where they freed not only Kemet, but freed their brother and sister nations in Arabia, in the Levant, and in those areas, freed the whole area. You see, but it was under the great leadership of these, Amos, the liberator, Amos the first. We talking about Nefertari, Amos Nefertari. You see, who was the matriarch of the dynasty. You see, depicted black. You see, when they say Egyptians wasn't black and painted black, we proved that wrong because Amos Nefertari was Egyptian, and she most definitely was and is the most depicted not, we don't say character, but image, icon of all of Egypt. Amos Nefertari was the most depicted icon of all of ancient Egypt. You see, but so this 18th dynasty was a dynasty truly of liberation to free Africa from the hands of invaders And it really caused Egypt to rise to, some of its greatest heights. Now, a lot of people say that the 18th dynasty is the greatest dynasty. And it's hard to argue with that. It's hard to argue with that. But you got the fourth dynasty, the pyramid builders, and you also got the 25th dynasty of the Kushites, and even the 19th dynasty of Ramesses II and Seti the First and Ramesses the First, and I believe Ramesses the Third was no joke. So you got a lot of powerful dynasties, you see, but the 18th dynasty, you see, this is live, family. Yeah, we live, most definitely. But anyway, let's tap in. Let's tap into the power of Amenhotep III. Now, okay, here we go. Boom. Now, Amenhotep III's reign, approximately 1391, 1353 BC, of the 18th dynasty, is widely considered the high water mark of ancient Egyptian power and prosperity. His rule was defined less by conquest and more by wealth, diplomacy, monumental building, and divine kingship. So many people say Egypt was at its richest during the reign of Amenhotep III and Queen Empress Tiye. Okay, it was at its richest out of 3,000 years. Okay, and so we're gonna give some key highlights. Thank you, family. Appreciate you. We're gonna look at some key highlights, historically grounded and widely accepted by most researchers. Now, the highlights of Amenhotep III's reign: Egypt at the peak of its power. Okay, Egypt controlled Nubia, the Levant, and major trade routes. Now, a lot of times they want to say Egypt controlled Nubia, the Levant, and really these is brother and sister nations. They don't want to talk about that. Their control went into Greece, went all the way over into Mesopotamia, went into India, you see, went into the islands of the Mediterranean, went as far as what you say today is over in the Iberia, the Spain today, what it's called. It wasn't Spain then, but the Egyptians had control over the whole of the Mediterranean. You see, but they want to make it because they don't want, they try to show the Roman Empire and the Arab Empire to be so vast, but they don't want to talk about. But the Greeks mention that. You see, that's why I brought up Diodorus Siculus, where he say that Osiris even went to India. A lot of people, when I was doing from Naga to nigga, a lot of people say, "Oh, Seti just making up things." Then when I brought the receipt, a lot of people get quiet. They thought Seti but this was talked about even in the ancient world, that the Egyptians had went to India. That's documented, and even Herodotus says that Sesostris, Senusret, the third, I believe, was it the third? I believe it was the third, who founded Athens in Greece. This wasn't an African Senate scholar. It was a Greek philosopher that said that. Matter of fact, the father of history. But it was other Greeks that backed that up, that, the Egyptians founded Greece, founded Athens. And so when under Amenhotep III, vast wealth flowed in from gold mines in Nubia. So, they was really tapping in. Egypt was the dominant superpower of the Near East. Okay, was the dominant superpower in the Near East. And so under Amenhotep III, now this is crazy. Now a lot of people don't know about Amenhotep III, even in that Freemasonry. You see, because he built so significantly. You see, all across, not in Egypt and Nubia, in all wherever Egypt had its hand, Amenhotep III it built something in that area. You see, and the records of his name and many other kings can be found all over the ancient world. You see, this is one of the powerful things about Egypt. Not only do you find records, just thousands and really tens of thousands of records in Egypt, even hundreds of thousands. Let me go even further than that. You in Egypt, in Nubia, but you find records of Egypt all across northern Africa, southern Europe, even farther up into northern Europe, all the way into Asia. You find records, whether it's cartouches, whether it's scab jewelry, or in some areas you even find tombs. And I'm looking that up too, where you find tombs. Even in the land that they call Israel, you got Egyptian tombs that go back 3,000 BC. So ask the question why they ain't found the tomb of Moses and Abraham and all of that. If you can find Egyptian tombs in that land 2,000 years older than Moses and Abraham, what the problem is? You see what the problem is. But anyway, Amenhotep major projects as far as building the Luxor Temple, and that was the Grand Lodge. This is where after Karnak, and listen, as we move forward, I'm gonna have a lot of more visuals up. I'm really tightening it up. I'm getting busy, so you're gonna get more of a lecture today. But as we move forward, of course, I'm gonna be dropping some mind-blowing visuals. So just get ready, family. But the Luxor Temple, where after you spent your 40 years at Karnak, that was the university system of the Nile. And so a brother went to school there for 40 years, and when he reached priesthood after 40 years in the mystery system, he was initiated. His final initiation was at the Luxor Temple. And this is crazy because, this is highly respected in Freemasonry. They know this, you feel me? And so Amenhotep is highly respected as the Grand Master. You see, because when the temple was, was in, it wasn't up to code. Amenhotep, came in because they was fighting. Them early kings in the 18th Dynasty, they was fighting. And so a lot of things had, when you at war, a lot of things is in disrepair and things of that nature. And so Amenhotep came and breathed life into Egypt. And so a lot of them temples, he rebuilt them, you know what I'm saying, and added a magnificent extensions to the temple. So that Luxor temple where the brothers was raised up, he went in and expanded and glorified that. And so he also the Malkata Palace Complex, largest royal residence of his time. He went in there, mortuary temple at Kam El Hetan. You understand? Another great monument in Egypt. You can look this up, but when I come the next time, I'm gonna most definitely have the visuals for you. The Colossi of Memnon. Those, if you ever look it up, just look it up. The Colossi of Memnon is two large statues of Amenhotep III. Is crazy because each one of these statues weigh almost 1,000 tons. You see, Each one of these statues weigh almost 1,000 tons. Nobody was building like that, even in Egypt. Not statues and things. Yeah, Amenhotep was building like on a giant scale. He really gave Ramesses the blueprint because Ramesses followed, and mostly all them pharaohs after Amenhotep III, he gave them the blueprint on how to build megalithically on as far as statues and all of that. Yes, indeed. So he's highly revered with that. You see, so his architecture emphasized divine kingship, not militarism. So a lot of them earlier kings, because they was on the battlefield, a lot of they monuments, it emphasized militarism. But under his rule, it was basically Egypt was at peace. It had won all the wars so it really was no wars. And so it was about divine kingship. Okay. The Pharaoh as a living God. So Amenhotep the third pushed royal divinity further than any predecessor. You see, so they was really identifying, he identified himself with Ra, with Amen, with Horus, called the dazzling sun disk, and even a lot of what Akhenaten was pushing, even with the I-10, his father, Amenhotep. And now this is Akhenaten's father. Let me mention that Amenhotep III is the father of Akhenaten. And really the I-10 and all, it was originally pushed by Amenhotep III, but it was still in the pantheon. He didn't remove Ra, he didn't remove Amen, he didn't remove Horus. Matter of fact, his name is Amenhotep III. Akhenaten originally was Amenhotep IV, but he changed that. So, from my understanding, he even changed, some of, what his father's name was. And so people was like, wait a minute, you understand what I'm saying? You didn't went too far. You didn't went too far. You see what I'm saying? You trying to erase history, it's one thing to be in charge. And if you want to, you want to isolate yourself with the people, because ultimately the people rule. They did not want to, just venerate I-10 alone. These gods were, some of them existed thousands of years before Egypt. These were not just Egypt. These came from the beginning of the Nile. And so the people were just not going to have that. It's just all it is to it, And so, but this is his father and his mother, Queen Tiye. Okay. And so, Amenhotep presented Egypt as a land ruled by a god on earth. So under his rule, he most definitely, the Pharaoh was looked at as a god. True indeed. And it may have been even before, but at his height and his power and his wealth, and to manifest it in all these statues and all these, these temples and, beautiful temples all over the place, honoring him and his wife, Queen Empress Tiye, all over Egypt. Really, he was deified as God while he ruled, you see. And so again, he Sekhmet and healing cults. And so he commissioned hundreds of Sekhmet statues, and I've seen a lot of them at Karnak. He had nothing but Sekhmet statues. And so likely linked to his illnesses in later life, because illnesses was looked at as something that was cast down on man by Sekhmet. But she was also the healer of any illness that she cast down. So they had to venerate Sekhmet to get her her mercy, you see. So to as a protection against plague and illnesses and things of that, strengthening the role of priest physician. So a lot of physicians honored Sekhmet. And so under Empress Queen Tiye, unprecedented power, T was depicted equal in scale to the king. You see, before that, you see, you see the queen, she be down there and much smaller than the king. Okay, much smaller than the king. So in her time, they were depicted equally. You see, they were depicted side by side equally. Her name appears in foreign correspondence because he got ill. He got ill, and she took over in when he was ill. Okay, and so they had to respond directly to her. Okay, she influenced diplomacy and religion, and actually she became a goddess to the Nubians, which is not mentioned. A lot of people don't mention that she became a goddess, and that speaks to something. The fact that she, her, being venerated in Nubia like that, and many people, Dr. Bill has already said that she was Nubian. So, so that, but see, we got to understand that an Egyptian is a Nubian is an Egyptian. You see, we got to stop this. Even the goddamn AI know that. It didn't said it. You see what I'm saying? That nobody is closer to the Egyptian than the Nubian. It's just a fact. You see, even when you're dealing with the flow of people down the Nile into Egypt, they come out of Nubia into Egypt. You see, so of course, in a lot of these temples start, showing up in Nubia on a megalithic scale too, and a lot of people don't talk about the great temples that's in Nubia, but we're gonna touch down on that. So she set the model for later royal women. You see, a lot of the jewelry, a lot of even the makeup and all of that, these damn Europeans been stealing. And like Queen T, Nefertari, the wife of Ramesses, they set the tone as far as fashion and beauty in the ancient world. And we I forget who did that lecture showing that these European companies right now are stealing jewelry and all type of fashion from the ancient world. They're mimicking it. They're stealing it. You see what I'm saying? Manufacturing it today, and and not giving credit of where it come from. Hold on just a second, fella. Back in the house, y'all. So it was the golden age of art, naturalistic sculpture, refined craftsmanship, luxurious materials, gold, lapses, ebony, really just, putting a lot of the precious minerals and all type of things, jewelry, statues, everything that they could, embellish with these precious minerals, they most definitely did it. And so it was really a time of internal stability and peace. So after all the Tutmosis, even Hatshepsut had to go out there and they crackheads sent military campaigns out to continue to crack heads to make sure that Egypt not come under conquest again. When it came to Amenhotep III and Empress Queen T, it was, at that point, the world had been brought under submission. You see, had been brought under the submission of my eye. So there was very few military campaigns, strong administration inherited from early kings. Wealth allowed Egypt to rule without constant warfare. This peace was fragile, but it was real. You see, it was fragile, but it was real. So the final assessment under the rule of Amenhotep III, Queen Tiye, did not conquer more land. He perfected the empire. His reign represents maximum wealth, maximum prestige, maximum cultural confidence. After him, Egypt would never again reach this level of effortless dominance. Effortless dominance. Ramesses, even though Ramesses considered the greatest pharaoh of all time, he had to still go to war. It wasn't that easy because after Amenhotep III came some, Akhenaten and Tut, King Tut, Sennacherib. They ain't had that hand like that. So under them and under Akhenaten, because he want to go out in the damn desert and become a monk and instead of being to the nation and tending to the needs, a lot of the land was taken. That all them all the kings that fought previously before they came to rule, a lot of that land had been lost. And so a lot of those them invaders out there, they got more, they say, oh, they ain't on they square no more. So we can come in and take, a lot of land, in which they did. So when Ramesses came to the throne, it was about going back to war. You see, it was about going back to war. And so most definitely the end of that 18th dynasty was really, gave, the enemies of Africa a boost to finally come in and really, put a couple of nails in the coffin. And, outside of the 25th dynasty, the 19th dynasty, that was pretty much it after the 25th dynasty. That was really the last great dynasty. But all of those dynasties was trying to get back to this one dynastic rule of Amenhotep III, Empress Queen Tiye, considered the wealthiest, greatest rule of ancient Egypt. Family, we're gonna tap back in now. We're gonna tap back in, and next time I'm gonna have the visuals up. I'm tightening up everything, and believe me, when I say I'm tightening it up, that's exactly what I'm doing. So we're gonna really start manifesting on a magnificent level real soon. So stay tuned, family. Get over there to Patreon, support the general. You already know. 500 exclusive live stream, and I'm putting some fire over there. So if you think I'm putting fire over here, you already know what's going to be on Patreon, because it's going to be on 3 levels higher. So pay attention. You feel me? I'll see y'all in a minute. Arm yourself with knowledge. Bang on that wicked ass beast daily. Liberation through African education and confrontation. Boom. Black power.